Welcome into another special episode, this time featuring Coach Sean and myself. And today we're going to be talking about a major talking point for Alabama's offense in 2024, and that's the running game. Washington is known for this prolific offense. Coach DeBoer is known for this prolific offense. And so I was doing some digging into the numbers of Washington's offense and the running game and how it relates to Alabama's running game from the year prior. And the thing that I was interested in is the personnel that Alabama has relative to the personnel Washington has. Now, Coach, here's where I have a question for you. How do you think Coach DeBoer is going to utilize the personnel Alabama has on roster? I asked that question because at Washington, Dylan Johnson, by and large, got the carries. He had almost 200 over the next closest guy, whereas at Alabama, 3 guys, including Jalen Milroe, had over 100 carries. So is this something where we will continue seeing a running back by committee, or what are you expecting?
I'm expecting Coach DeBoer to have a running back by committee because when he was at Washington, when you look at Dylan Johnson, I think Dylan Johnson is maybe, if I remember it, kid was like 6', 218, 220, somewhere along in there. He was a mammoth of a back. He ran hard. I just don't think they had enough talent to really support him like that. I mean, they had some decent backs, right? But I think Dylan Johnson was just so much more talented than the guys he had. I don't believe they had anywhere near the depth at running back that Alabama does. I don't even think it's close. And I think when you put Coach DeBoer with this running back stable, it's like a kid in a candy store, right? Justice Haynes, Jam Miller, Richard Young. Richard Young may be the fastest of them all, may possibly be the fastest of them, believe it or not. I do think that when you have backs that are versatile and round each other out and push each other in different aspects of pressing the line of scrimmage, I do think that Coach DeBoer will be forced to play these guys. Like I said, it's like a kid in the candy store. And when you look at his roster, Will Nixon, I think his name was Will Nixon. Kid was 5'11", about 200 pounds. Kid was okay, right? But I don't think that kid was better than Roy Dale or Jace, Will Nixon. Sort of a jump cut back, one tackle guy that really didn't make a lot of people miss a lot. You would think the style of running back that he was would make a lot of people miss. I just think the talent gap between Dylan Johnson and the next back was very, very, very great.
I completely agree, Coach. And the reason why I wanted to ask that is twofold. And you answered the first one on the nail, and that's the personnel Alabama has. Now, the second reason I wanted to ask you that is because I don't know if you caught it, but earlier today, Coach DeBoer was talking about his offensive philosophy, and he stated that while he has an offensive philosophy, it's more fluid, right? It's not something where the offense and the personnel has to fit into his scheme. His scheme will fit around the personnel.
Right.
And when I went back and looked, that's true. The year prior, before they got Dylan Johnson, his leading rusher had 140 attempts. When they got Dylan Johnson, you saw him run the ball through one guy at a much higher clip, which tells me if you give him access to these high-level running backs that can play SEC caliber ball, he's going to get them the rock. And it's interesting when we talk about personnel because, Coach, there's a lot of talk on social media as to which guy or guys will be the guys. Where do you think this battle could end up? Because this is going to be one of the more fun battles for Alabama fans to watch as we head into spring practice.
I do believe that Justice and Jam will be your Roy Dale, Jace type backs. I do think he'll interchange them out, but I don't think DeBoer would change them out as frequently as, believe it or not, as our past people. I really I didn't agree how much we switched out Jason Roydell because I know just from playing the position, I played that position all my life. It's hard to get in a rhythm when you're playing running back if you're being substituted every 2 series, right? When you play running back, you have to get a feel for how the defense is playing, which defensive lineman is stunting very well, which defensive lineman is not taking plays off. You have to get a feel, right? When you have a gap scheme, any type of offense, you have a feel and a flow of the game, right? I don't think Coach DeBoer is going to upset that balance, right? I do think he'll put Jam in and let Jam play. I think he'll put Justice in and let Justice play. Justice may even start with this offense, may. I love Jam. I think Jam is awesome. I do think Jam tends to break things to the outside sometimes a little too much. When the hole is there, Jam tries to trust his speed, which is normal for a high school back, right? You think you can outrun everybody to the edge, right? Every high school back thinks that, myself included. Justice is more of a jump cut, hit the crease, a pune guy, if you will, right? That kid don't need but a crack. And Jam is very similar, but Jam is more of your edge. He likes to attack the edge. He presses the line of scrimmage with good balance. And Richard Young will be that Justice Haynes guy from this year. He'll come in on spot duty, I believe. But the crazy thing about it is, I really don't know for sure, because Coach DeBoer could come in there and just throw a whole monkey wrench into this thing, right? You have three versatile backs who are all similar, but all very, very, very different, right? So I really don't know for sure, but if I'm guessing, I do believe that he'll let the back play and not substitute as much as we did in the past.
You know, Coach, one thing I always talk about is there are good problems and there are bad
Yeah.
problems. I think in the past, Coach DeBoer has had the problem of not having the depth at the running back position.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case at Alabama. At Alabama,
Right.
he has a problem, but it's a good one. What direction are you going to go in? What is going to be the combination? Is it going to be Justice Jam, Richard Young, Justice Richard Young? I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches, and that's before we even get talking about a Kevin Riley or a Daniel Hill, some true freshman guys that were really coveted. But,
Yeah.
Coach, there's the personnel, and I think there's a lot to be excited there, because I think the guys on this personnel have the ability to get active in the passing game as well. But talk to me about the retention of Coach Gillespie. What does that mean for Alabama's offense and Alabama's running backs moving forward?
I think with Coach Gillespie, you're going to get a running back who clearly understands what pressing the line of scrimmage means, right? In the SEC, you have a lot of different type backs, right? That's why I like Michigan's offense so well. I think Blake Corum and the other Edwards, I think his last name was, those guys really, really, really complemented each other very, very well. Two different guys, but really, really, really complemented each other for down and distance purposes, right? If it's 3rd and 1, they got the back for that. If it's 1st and 10, they got the back for that. If it's 2nd and 6, they got the back for that, right? And I really do believe Alabama's going to be the same, because with Justice, you got to remember, Justice is different than any back on that roster. Justice Haynes has natural feet, right? A natural feel for the position, shows elite vision, burst, tackle breaking ability. I predict that Justice will probably get the most carries out of all these guys. Jam is an elite back. He's a little bit more powerful than Justice. A lot of speed toward the edge. Not really a jump cut back, right? But a cutback back, if you will. Jam is extremely unique because Jam uses his lower body a little more than Justice do. Justice is just raw talent. You know what I mean? And Richard may be the fastest out of both of them. Believe it or not, I'm hearing that Richard Young may be the fastest out of all of them. Very strong back. You're not going to tackle him with one defender, right? Kid that will lower his shoulder on you. And it's crazy. You got Daniel Hill. This kid is 238 pounds, I believe. 5'11", 6 foot, 230 pounds. Run behind his pass, can catch as good as any receiver. Played a lot of receiver in his high school offense, believe it or not. Interesting skills for that kid. And then you have Kevin Riley, another jump cut back, lightning quick, jump cut, very, very similar to Jace, but I believe a little faster, a little more foot speed than Jace. And kid doesn't waste any time. So it's a balance of riches, But I do expect Jam to, especially with this offense, Ty, I do expect Jam to receive the brunt of the touches.
And that's the interesting thing about it with all of the riches here, and especially with the retention of Coach Gillespie, because he understands these guys. He understands their talent. And in my opinion, having someone like Coach Gillespie, the reason why it's so important, much like keeping Freddie Roach on the defensive side, you have a room that is loaded with talent, just like that defensive line. You have a new offense. You have a new defense. You have these coaches that have been there before. They understand their players, that they can instantly go to the offensive coordinator, go to the defensive coordinator and say, hey, these are the guys. This is what they do. Let's scheme around it and let's get busy.
Yeah.
Now, coaches, as all Alabama fans have come to expect, a powerful running game, I think, is in the cards, especially when you look We don't know what the offensive line is going to do. If you're interested in that, Coach Merrill and I, we did a video breaking down that. Be sure to check that out after this. But we also know Alabama fans, as much as they love their running production, they love their running back recruiting. Coach, looking into the future, this offense, Coach Gillespie being here, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, he just turned down Georgia, per reports, to stay with the Crimson Tide, to remain as the Crimson Tide's running back coach. Coach Sean, how do you think that this staff can recruit the running back in the future? What are we looking at in terms of the level of talent at that position?
I know 2 recruits is going to be at 8A right now. One of them lived 2 communities over from me, and I go to church with the other one's father. I can tell you, and they both played the same position. I can tell you right now what the future of the recruiting of this position will be. How much does Coach DeBoer run the ball this year? How do you exploit the running backs on the roster? And I said a while ago that Jam will get the brunt of the. I meant Justice. I meant to say Justice. I think Justice will get the brunt of all the carries. I do think Justice will be running back 1. I do. I think they'll switch out, but I do think Justice will be running back 1. That's what I meant to say. But going forward in the recruiting of this, we have Turbo. We're trying to get the young man Henderson, right? You got to give those kids carries, right? You got to let them get comfortable. You got to exploit your running backs. And for high school kids, it's not how many times you run the ball. It's when do you run the ball? What did you do with the running? What did you do? That's what high school kids want to know, right? Did you come out and throw the ball in the first half 16 times? Or did you give the running back some opportunities? They want to know, when did you run the ball? How did you run the ball? How did you exploit your running back in the pass game? You got to be able to show that your offense not only highlights the wide receivers, right? But you got to highlight your running game. And I think in this conference, he's going to do that. So I think that will recruit itself. Alabama and the showing of the running back, the utilization of the running back in this offense will recruit itself going forward. You can believe that.
Now, here's a question I have for you, Coach. And as a running back, I'm fascinated to hear your answer. And it's multifaceted. It has to do with the draft. It has to do with production. It has to do with recruiting. How enticing is it if you're a running back in high school looking at Alabama, knowing that it's a loaded backfield, but because it's loaded, you're competing with and against the best. But 2, you don't enter the NFL draft with a ton of miles on you because you've been able to split carries. Is that something that's a selling point for Alabama?
100% facts. 100% facts. Even the NFL right now. The NFL does not look for these backs that had 200, 300 carries like Ron Dane back in the day, right? They want to know, where you look no further than Damian Harris and Josh Jacobs, right? The NFL has been trending this way for a long time. They want the backs that can get through the line of scrimmage with low pad level. They want the backs that have above average wiggle. They want the backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield and turn a 5-yard run into a 50-yard run. They want these kind of backs, explosive backs, right? And a lot of the backs that don't have a lot of wear and tear on them are the backs that's dominating in college football right now. I absent Derrick Henry, right? He's the exception. Even Nick Chubb, when he was in college, shared the ball, right? Derrick Henry, I can honestly say, is probably the only back I know of that had 40 carries in one game type stuff at Georgia. You know what I mean? So you don't really see those kind of backs anymore. They want the backs that are versatile, that can come in, not with a lot of tire tread on them, but the backs that are fresh with a lot of leg speed, that can come in and play. Josh Jacobs did not start. Damian Harris started, right? Josh didn't have a lot of miles on him at all. Guess which back ended up going first round? Josh, right? So they definitely look to that, Ty. You were 1,000% correct as usual, right? They want to know, what's your route running like? They want those Alvin Kamara, Jahmyr Gibbs type running backs, guys that didn't have 1,000 carries here and there, but guys that can make things happen when they get the ball in their hands. Look no further than Jahmyr Gibbs. Not a lot of carries, but a lot of production.
And see, I love that because it circles back to what you just got done talking about. It's not how many carries do you get, it's when do you get the carries? What do those carries look like? What's the impact? And I love that. Now, Coach, you know what's so fascinating to me, and this is what we'll end on, just kind of bragging about an Alabama great and Derrick Henry. It's not only that he would have 40-plus carries a game at Alabama, This is a guy that got to Tuscaloosa coming expecting 40 plus carries because that's what he saw in high school.
Yeah.
It's not like he's ever known, just here's 10 carries a game and you can share the payload. No, he has been the guy, has remained as the guy, and that's just a really rare thing. He truly is the exception as opposed to the rule, and that's awesome. And Coach, it goes to prove Alabama is running back you, no doubt about it.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about it, man. When you look around the NFL, I think Alabama has 7 running backs on rosters right now. I mean, Alabama has done it at every position, right? It trips me out, Ty, because you hear these universities saying DBU, running back you, wide receiver you, linebacker you, all these different positions, right? I tell people all the time, Alabama is just NFL you. Right?
Yep.
We can talk quarterbacks, we can talk running backs, we can talk wide receivers, we can talk D linemen, offensive linemen, we can talk secondary people, we can talk linebackers, CJ Mosley, Christian Harris. I mean, how many ever people you want to talk? So when you talk about running backs, Alabama definitely has some of the best running backs in the league, the most productive running backs in the league, and some of the most highest paid running backs in the league. So you are 1,000% correct as usual.
Last question for you, Coach. We are all excited about this offense.
Yeah.
We just talked about how Alabama has been running back you. Under this new staff, can Alabama maintain its grasp on running back you?
I think so. I think as long as Coach DeBoer understands the SEC is a different league than the Pac-12. No disrespect to the Pac-12, but the Pac-12 in recent memory has been a passing league. They had a lot of seniors in that league this year. A lot of guys come back. That COVID year really helped that league this year. They don't have a lot of pro prospects in that. I won't say that. I'll say the Pac-12, when you look at them compared to the SEC and Big Ten, as far as pro prospects in the past, they hadn't measured up, right? So a lot of those kids stayed. They didn't leave. They stayed. So they had a very good season this season. That coupled with a lot of the chairmen, a lot of the board members were from the Pac-12. They had a good season, right? But this is not a passing league. It's a league that has passers, right? The SEC is a rugged league. Even front, beat you up in the front 4, front 7 type league. You have to run the ball in this league, right? You have to be able to have some type of balance in the SEC. Now, I think that will be, if I had to say, one bump in the road, because a coach only does what a coach knows. I know that personally. It doesn't matter where he go, doesn't matter which league he's in. A coach is going to stick to the blueprint of what he knows. I think Coach Katie will find out in this league, you're not going to be able to drop back every down and throw the ball. 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. Sometimes you may not be able to throw the ball for that. You may not be able to run a mesh route for that. At some point, you're going to have to line up, smash mouth wise, and run that thing with the talent that you have. So I think life is the best teacher, right? And the SEC is definitely a part of that life. So I think as the weeks go by and the teams and the talent that he play and the film study starts to equal up to hours and hours and hours of watching, I think he'll find out that this league, you gotta feature your run game just about as much as you feature your passing game.
So true, Coach. So true. And I apologize to everybody out there. Coach, I apologize to you. I lied. I have one final question, though it's a very short question.
Okay.
Will Alabama have a 1,000-yard rusher?
I think so. I think Justice Haynes will be a 1,000-yard rusher. I do believe that. I do believe Coach DeBoer will watch the film of Alabama and realize we made a mistake by not playing this kid more, right? This kid, I know he had some injuries with the arm, the shoulder, elbow, whatever it was, something in the upper area, right? I think Coach DeBoer understands if we run Justice more, we may have beaten Michigan, right? This kid is different. It doesn't take a super coach to find that out. He'll see that up close and personal when practice begins. Justice Haynes is such a special back. He's going to force. Remember what Coach Saban used to say? Force me to play you. Force me to play you. You can believe, Ty, once the pads go on, Justice Haynes will force Coach DeBoer to put him on that field. I do think Justice will go over 1,000 yards, especially in this offense. I really do.
Love to hear it. And my hope is that Alabama's rushing attack forces their will on the SEC. That
Facts.
starts up front. Can't wait to see what the offensive line does, but with the powerful rushing attack can unlock an even greater passing attack. Can't wait to see how it all looks. Coach, this has been an absolute blast. Any final points you'd like to add?
Nah, you did a great job, Ty, as usual, man. Love being on with you, man. You always administrate things right. You have great questions, great answers as well. And I appreciate you, man. Roll Tide to everyone, and roll Tide to the undefeated.
Absolutely, Coach. Always a pleasure when we get to do this. We had an absolute blast on early signing day, and I'm actually in the studio now as opposed to a barbecue joint with very sweet grandmothers, but grandmothers nonetheless looking over me as we're trying to break down the early signing prospects. Everybody in the undefeated, hop down into the comments. I have two questions for you before we leave here. First and foremost, do you think Alabama will have a 1,000-yard rusher? And secondly, what do you think the running back order will look like? Can't wait to hear from y'all. Until next time, that's it. See ya.